Hello queens, angels, and goddesses. Welcome back to my channel. Warning, this contains boy love, and if you don't like it then please get off my channel. Water pistol. Grinning face with cowboy hat. Satori groaned as he slowly fell out of the daze sleep brought. Light irritated his eyes and the familiar warmth of waking up next to Wakatoshi was missing. He lazily patted the side of the bed next to him, expecting to find his fiancée, yet his skin only met wrinkled fabric. Subconsciously panicking, he snapped his eyes open and jerked his body in a sitting position. "Toshi?" he called out, waiting for an answer. It never came. He forced the knot forming in his throat down. "Wakatoshi, where are you?" Without waiting for an answer, the redhead scrambled off of the bed and walked to the bathroom. He knocked a couple of times but was met yet again with sinister silence. Satori pushed the door open slightly, peeking inside. Nobody. He pulled away from the doorframe and made his way to the kitchen. The floor creaked under each of his steps and the eerie silence sent shivers down his spine. He walked up to the closed kitchen door, listening to anything that could have given a clue Wakatoshi was there. Still silent. The redhead pushed the door open, only a glimpse of what was inside making his breath hitch and tears soak his eyelashes. He slammed the door open and ran towards Wakatoshi's body, which was sprawled on the kitchen tiles, red liquid pooling around the knife wound slit in his throat. "Wakatoshi!" He yelled breathlessly, clinging onto the latter's body for dear life. "No, no, no, no. Wakatoshi, get up." "No." Satori reached out and uselessly pressed two of his fingers on Wakatoshi's upper neck, right under his jaw. No rhythmical beats indicated that he was alive. Satori knew he wouldn't be, but it felt as if his world collapsed. The person he loved most was gone. Toshi was gone. Hot, salty tears poured out of his eyes, clouding his senses. "No. Wakatoshi." He let out long, mournful wails, holding onto the body, hoping that whatever god was out there pitied him and gave his sweet miracle boy back. "Satori." Wakatoshi's voice ringed in his ears. "Toshi? Toshi." He wailed out, another wave of sadness and desperation hitting him as he realized Wakatoshi was still dead. He was imagining things. "Satori, wake up." The morbid view and eerie silence faded to Wakatoshi's worried gaze, birds singing outside their bedroom window. "Wakatoshi." Satori breathed out and threw himself at the latter. He buried his face in Wakatoshi's chest, letting the familiarity of the warmth envelop him. "Are you okay? You were crying and fidgeting in your sleep." The redhead took a couple of seconds to fully acknowledge that Wakatoshi was actually alive and his mind wasn't playing with him. Just a nightmare. He finally answered, convincing himself that at the same time. It seemed so real though. Why did he feel like he went through that before? Nonsense. Wakatoshi is here and always will be. All right then. What do you want for breakfast? He asked while rubbing Satori's back lightly. Pancakes. He grumbled. Satori pressed closer to his fiancée, letting his eyes close and listen to his steady heartbeat. The one he was struggling to find only a couple minutes ago. The one his world wouldn't exist without. Wakatoshi was his world. "I need to get up, Satori." Wakatoshi's deep voice gently shook him out of his daze. He wished that was how he would have woken up that day. "All right." He mumbled softly and moved away from Wakatoshi, not before pressing a quick kiss to his cheek. Wakatoshi smiled, making his heart swell. He meant so much to him. They got up and headed to the kitchen. Satori pushed himself on the counter, watching Wakatoshi do his thing. "Oh, I wanna taste that." Satori pointed to the bowl of pancake mix Wakatoshi was stirring. Wakatoshi chuckled lightly, but pushed the bowl towards him. Satori reached in with a finger and swooped the sweet dough in his mouth. Vanilla. I thought you didn't like it that much?" he asked while taking the bowl again. "If you ask that because of the glasses guy from Karasuno we played with, I swear to God," he trailed off, all of his energy suddenly draining from his body. Satori? Are you okay? You're pale." The redhead rose a finger, indicating he was alright. "I'm fine, just dizzy." He slumped over, somewhat familiar darkness clouding his view. Satori felt arms wrap around him and lay him on the floor. He didn't see anything anymore. He didn't hear anything either. He was only there, suffocating in an ocean of shadows and memories. Memories. A white-haired guy with black tips. He recognized him. What was his name? Sem. Simu. Semi? Yes, Semi. That sounded right. A shorter boy with bangs. Shira, Boo? No, not him. Goshiki. More images were flashing through his mind, he couldn't make out a one person. He didn't see anything, but he heard. He heard pitched squeaks followed by two sharp sounds. He recognized these. A gym? He suddenly remembered volleyball, memories of practicing and his teammates crashing in his mind at once. Only Wakatoshi wasn't there. Where was he? He tried to speak but no words came out. Then he realized he couldn't move. He couldn't feel his body. Where was he? Wakatoshi. He gasped and jerked himself forward in a sitting position that stretched his sore muscles and made his bones hurt. He looked around the room. No sign of Wakatoshi. It didn't look like their bedroom either. He heard the sound of a heartbeat. Only it didn't sound right. It was artificial. A hospital room? Why was he here? Wakatoshi must have called an ambulance. But where was he? The door opened, revealing a short nurse. She gasped and pressed a button attached to the collar of her uniform. Patient 2034 has woken up. She let go of the device and walked next to my bed. Hello, you must be Satori Tenda, right? She asked after a second of searching the room for a name tag. He nodded quickly. Where is Wakatoshi? He asked. Excuse me, who? She seemed confused. Surely, if Wakatoshi called the ambulance he must have shared his name? Wakatoshi Ashijima. My fiancé. Wasn't he the one who called the ambulance? He asked, worry shaking his voice. After a minute of the nurse looking through papers, she answered. I'm sorry sir, there isn't any information on any fiancé in your documents. She said softly, expecting any kind of outburst. Satori stared at her, his mouth slightly open. What? But he remembered when Wakatoshi proposed like it was yesterday. The door opened again, a red-haired woman bawling her eyes out. She looked familiar. Satori, you're awake. You're awake. She rushed to his side, and reached out towards him but the nurse stopped her. He's still unstable mom, I'll have to ask you to refrain from touching him. Her voice was gentle but stern at the same time. Say, Satori, do you remember her? She pointed towards the crying woman. She seems familiar. He answered after a minute of thinking. The nurse nodded and wrote something down. Do you know how you got here? She asked. Yes, me and Wakatoshi were making breakfast and I fainted. The nurse wore a worried expression while writing. The other woman seemed to grow even more miserable, now hiding her face in the palms of her hands, sobbing softly. All right, I'll need to talk to your mother now. A counselor will talk to you about what happened, is that all right? He nodded again. Mother. Was that woman his mother? The two left his room. Satori heard talking from outside the closed door. A younger, blonde woman entered. She pulled a chair to sit next to his bed. Hello, Satori-kun, my name is Megan. How are you feeling? She asked. My muscles are sore. He muttered. Yes, understandable. But how are you dealing with this mentally? She asked gently. What happened to Wakatoshi? Where is he? Satori asked, not bothering to answer the question. He thought it was pretty clear. Wakatoshi-kun. I used to talk to him regularly. He was one of my patients too. She answered sadly. What do you mean was? What happened? He asked, worry for his soulmate making him shake slightly. Satori, do you really know how you ended up here? She asked sternly. Me and Wakato. I mean the real world. She interrupted. What do you mean real world? Wakatoshi is real. Wakatoshi committed 2 years ago. You were the one who found him and overdosed, falling into a coma. She explained. Satori's world fell apart. Wakatoshi did what? But he was with him earlier. How? Tears stained his face as his sanity was slowly disappearing. Sobs shook his body and he was shaking violently. He heard the HRM's sounds speeding up. Wakatoshi was gone. His world was gone. He was truly dead. He wasn't here. He was never here. All of it was a dream. A nightmare. Satori didn't notice all of the doctors and nurses that entered the room and were trying to calm him down. He didn't notice Megan panicking. He wanted to die already. A world without him was not worth existing. A life without him was not worth living. Any thought that wasn't about him was not worth thinking. Satori reached next to his bed, gripping onto the power cord of the machine that was keeping him alive. A doctor grabbed his hand to try and stop him, but he pushed him away. With one powerful yank, he pulled the cord out and let himself fall on the bed, feeling life drain out of him. The HRM's beeping was slowly fading and the sounds around him seemed to drain out of his ears. Soon enough, he found himself in the same cold darkness. Satori smiled, hoping that he would wake up next to his Toshi again. Tsutomu exited the car while gripping onto the flowers in his hand. He slowly made his way through the graveyard, eyes searching for two familiar names. He stopped in front of a large tombstone that read, "Here rests Wakatoshi Ashijima and Satori Tendou. May their spirits live forward in our hearts." 13. 5. 201,213. 5. 2014. They passed away on the same date, 2 years apart. Tsutomu smiled and placed the flower bouquet in front of the tombstone. "Hey. Long time no see huh?" He knew they wouldn't answer, but it only felt right to talk. "I graduated last year. It was quiet without you, Tendou-san, you know." He paused, his smile slowly fading. "Everyone was really sad after Coach told us the news. Sorry for not visiting earlier. I wasn't ready. But I am now. And guess what? I got rid of the bowl cut." He chuckled. "Tough decision, really." There was a moment of silence before Tsutomu spoke again. "We won nationals in my second year. For you too. We knew you always wanted that. So we did." He paused. "We played against Aoba Josei. There was this first year named Takeru Oikawa. Guess what I told him after we won?" He chuckled. "You should have come to Shiratorizawa. Wakatoshi-san, you should have seen his face. It was hilarious." He laughed. "Well, it did get most of the second and third years in Shiratorizawa tearing up, but I don't regret a thing." Tsutomu's laugh faded as he stared at the stone. He sighed lightly and bowed. "Thank you. Both of you. Nor me or anyone else on our team would have been where we are now without you." Tears pricked in the corners of his eyes but he didn't bother to stop them from falling. "May both of you rest well. I hope you find each other one day. It was pretty obvious you liked each other back then, by the way." He smiled again. Tsutomu straightened his back and looked at the grave for a couple more moments. He sighed lightly and wiped his tears away. "This world without you. It's pretty sad. Warning, this fanfiction does not belong to me, neither does the fan art. Credits to the original artist and author to the fan art and the fanfiction. Haikyuu does not belong to me either. Well, bye children, smiling face with hearts.